When I was growing up, my cousin Sally would always sleep over. I was an only child, and Sally was like the sister that I never had. Sally was sleeping over my place one night. We were both discussing how there was apparently a large snake that swam in the local river but could only be seen during the nighttime. It was the talk of the town. Not many adults knew about the snake, but us young kids, we did, and we thought that it was the coolest thing. So, being 13 and stupid, Sally and I decided we were going to sneak out of my house and go down to the river to see this giant snake. We waited until my parents fell asleep. Once I could hear my dad snoring, I knew that we were in the clear. Sally and I snuck out my back door, and we headed towards the river. It was only about a 10-minute walk from my place. It was thrilling, sneaking out in the dead of night. There's always that rush you get, doing something you know you're not supposed to do. When we finally got to the river, we marveled at how the bright moon reflected on the water. We sat on the bank of the river, eagerly awaiting to see the giant snake that we apparently could only see at the nighttime. We sat there for some time. The surface of the water was calm, and so far, we did not see any sign of a giant snake. About a half hour of sitting by the bank, we were interrupted by bright headlights. About 30 yards in front of us, a huge white van pulled up. We both froze. We did not know if this was considered trespassing or not, because we were only 13 at the time. Was this a cop or security? After a few moments passed, we realized it was neither. A large man got out of the driver's side and went to the back of the van. Frightened, we watched as he opened the trunk and pulled out something large. Whatever it was wrapped up in a black bag. The man then proceeded to drag the large black bag to the edge of the river and then threw it in. Even at the young age of 13, we knew that this was not typical behavior. The man threw a total of 3 large bags into the river. He was brushing his hands off when he finally saw Sally and I sitting along the riverbank. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Sally squeezed my hand, and we held our breath in anticipation. The large man stared at us for a moment. He seemed almost frightened to see other people out here at this hour. But then his fright turned into anger. Even from this distance, I could see the rage in his face. Then, without warning, the man started sprinting towards us. Sally pulled me by my wrist and screamed, "Let's go." We started running back to my house, hopping fences and cutting through woods. We did not look behind us one time. Tears streamed down my face as we ran. I thought my lungs were going to explode from how fast we were running. But finally, we reached my house. We shut the back door quietly, careful to not wake my parents. We made sure the kitchen and downstairs lights were off, in case the guy was still tailing us. We looked out the windows, but we did not see anyone outside or in the distance. We were safe. A few days go by. I was hanging with a bunch of my neighborhood friends when one of them asked me if I heard about the recent news. Curious, I said no and asked what news. What they told me shocked me to my core. Apparently, police recently discovered 3 bodies in the river that Sally and I snuck out to find that big snake. All the bodies were wrapped in large black trash bags. The only clues the police had so far was that the suspect responsible for the bodies drove a big white van and was a large man. I told all this to Sally over the phone later that night. We both came to the horrifying conclusion that we witnessed a murderer disposing his bodies. As far as I know, the man was never caught. But as for Sally and I, we never snuck out again. My sister and I have always been daredevils. We love to explore dark woods, climb high cliffs, and other daring things. So when we heard about the local abandoned house in our town being haunted, we knew that we had to explore it. At the time, we were both 12 years old. We both shared the same bedroom, and we both snuck out of the house before and knew to wait about an hour after our parents went to bed for maximum effectiveness. It was a Friday night when we decided to sneak out. This was the night we were going to find out if this abandoned house was really haunted or not. Our bedroom was on the first floor of our house. We quietly opened our window and climbed out, landing on the soft grass below. The night air was chilly, but that did not bother us. We were ecstatic to sneak out and explore the abandoned house. And after 15 minutes of cutting through backyards and woods, we finally found the house. It was in an empty lot all by itself. The windows were boarded up. The roof had many shingles missing. It looked desolate. We smiled at each other and made our way towards the house. We walked through the front door and pulled out our flashlights. There was no furniture. Dust and trash were littered everywhere. There was a rotting smell, and the air was thick. Every step creaked the floorboards. If I'm being honest, I was pretty scared. I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that, but it felt like we were not alone in there. After exploring the first floor, we decided it was time to check out the second floor and see if we could find anything cool up there. As we reached the top of the stairs, my sister went left towards what looked like a bathroom, and I went right to the nearest door. I pushed it open and shined my flashlight all around the room. It looked like it may have been a bedroom at one point. There was a metal bed frame in the center, but that was it. I was about to go explore another room when my flashlight landed on something I did not see when I first walked in. There, in the corner of the room, stood a man. He was very tall and had on what appeared to be a dirty nightgown. His back was to me, and I could not see his face. I did not want to see his face. A part of me wanted to scream, but my body would not let me. It's like my voice was caught in my throat. My sister came from behind me, asking me if I found anything, and then she fell silent. She saw my flashlight aimed at the tall man standing in the corner. I could feel her rattled breath on my neck. Her eyes were wide with horror. We started to slowly step back. We were almost out of the room. And that's when the tall man turned around. His eyes were rolled in the back of his head. He had an unnaturally wide smile. He tilted his head at both of us and said, "Want to play with me?" I've seen enough horror movies to know that this situation was one big nope. I grabbed my sister's wrist and pulled her out of the room. We sprinted down the stairs and burst out the front door. We did not stop running until we got home. When we both safely climbed back into our bedroom, we pulled huge blankets over our heads and hid underneath them. It took a few moments for us to fully calm down. When we did, we started discussing if the man we saw was real or not. If he was real, what was he doing there? But if he wasn't real... Both our cell phones vibrated at the same time. We looked at our phones and saw that we each received a text message from an unknown number. I shakily swiped up on my phone, and we both read the text message. All it said was, "Want to play with me?" Again, my sister and I do not believe in ghosts or the supernatural. I've always said there has to be a logical explanation for everything. But even to this day, 10 years after my sister and I snuck out to the abandoned house, we have no way of explaining the tall man standing in the corner and the text message we received. When I was 12 years old, my favorite thing to do was to sneak out. I'm not sure why, but there was something so thrilling about breaking the rules. It brought on a type of freedom. One night, my good friend Brandon was sleeping over. He also liked to sneak out, and it's one of the reasons our relationship was so strong. So, on the night that Brandon slept over my house, you guessed it, we snuck out. My parents were light sleepers. I knew that we would have nothing to worry about. Once we heard their bedroom door shut at midnight, we knew that we were in the clear. We snuck out my kitchen door. We hopped over my fence and started walking through the woods that were in my backyard. It was chilly outside, and there was a dense fog hovering over the ground. It almost felt like we were walking in a dream. We did not have an initial plan. We just enjoyed the sense of freedom that sneaking out brought us. It was like chains were broken off, and we could do whatever we wanted to do. We came to the end of the woods. Across the street, there was a street sign that read, Hollow Road. We could not have been more than 10 minutes from my house, but in all honesty, I had never heard of this road before, and neither had Brandon. That was enough curiosity for us to want to explore more. We crossed the street and started walking along Hollow Road. Again, the fog was thick and dense, so we could not see too far ahead. But it seemed that we were walking down a long street lined with simple suburban houses. We walked in the middle of the road, feeling invincible. We were joking around, laughing, and just enjoying the night. That was until I noticed something. Brandon asked me why I stopped, and I told him to look at that house. I pointed to the house directly to my left that had the huge front windows. It took Brandon a moment, but his eyes widened when he noticed it. In the house that I was pointing at, in every front-facing window, someone was standing in and staring at us. All their faces, I noticed, had an unnaturally wide grin. Their eyes were wide open, and not one of them was blinking. I started to feel extremely uncomfortable. I had never witnessed such strange behavior. And that's when Brandon tapped me on the shoulder and said to look over there. He was pointing to all the other houses on Hollow Road. In every window of every house, someone stood there, their eyes wide open with that unnatural smile, staring directly at us. I had no logical explanation as to what we were experiencing. It was 1 a.m. There was no way this many people would be awake on the same street, looking out their window at us in such a bizarre manner. A nervous chill ran down my spine. I could see the goosebumps on Brandon's arms. The fog was getting heavier and denser around us. We looked at each other and gladly agreed that it was time to leave. The thrill of sneaking out was now replaced with a deep fear of the unknown. We turned around on Hollow Road and headed back towards the woods from which we came from. Before we entered the woods, I turned around one last time and saw the dense fog cover up the Hollow Road sign. And then it was gone. In about 10 minutes, after walking silently back through the woods, we reached my house. We got into our sleeping bags, both disturbed and confused as to what just happened. When we woke up the next morning, we immediately went onto Google Maps. We decided that we would look up that road. But as we searched page after page on the internet, we could not find Hollow Road anywhere. Upset that we could not find the road on Google, we decided that we would walk to it again in person, because we had to see this place during the daylight. Maybe Google had not updated itself, and that's why we could not find it on the internet. When it was the afternoon, we hiked through my woods, taking the exact route as we did last night. But when we came to the end of the woods, Hollow Road was nowhere to be seen. In fact, there was no houses, no roads or streets, nothing. Just an open field with swaying stalks of grass. Yes, it was foggy last night, but even still, I knew that where we stood was exactly where Hollow Road was supposed to be. It should have been right here, but impossibly, it wasn't. To this day, Brandon and I cannot explain what happened that night when we snuck out. We can't explain all those people staring at us creepily through the windows in their houses. We could not explain why we couldn't find Hollow Road on the internet or again in person. I've heard some people say that this is a glitch in the Matrix. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Maybe we experienced something that was beyond our comprehension. I guess we'll never know.